So who are this mysterious group known as the Illuminati? Where do they operate from? And who are its members? Are they really some secret world government operating in the shadows? Or is the whole thing simply one huge conspiracy theory?
One has to consider the strong possibility that there are puppet masters above Obama, above Cameron, above Putin, who are organizing and influencing.
It's terrifying that there are millions, perhaps tens of millions of people in the world who believe in the Illuminati as a fact.
It's incredibly widespread, and considering the historical data, it's surprising so many people believe what is effectively an urban myth.
So you believe that they were trying to match this to the way they've laid out Paris?
They've created an Egyptian temple in the middle of Paris.
It's now become a series of all-encompassing conspiracy theories, but the Illuminati did exist.
They are a secret society that makes things happen in ways that we know what not of.
The pentagram is an ancient symbol of occult power, which was used to designate a ritual space inside which magic was performed.
Which is, as we now know it,
the City of London.
The existence of the Illuminati has been rumoured for over a century. They're said to meet in secret, but their influence is felt across the globe. A secret world government, in effect. The whole thing sounds like something from a James Bond movie, but is it true?
There's certainly evidence of several groups who call themselves the Illuminati, all the way back to 14th, 15th century, the enlightened ones. But they're not the Illuminati that people talk about today. They're not that type of, secret society that we all think about when we hear the word Illuminati.
This sort of cult in the belief of the Illuminati is widespread today, and particularly amongst the younger generation, who would tell you that everything from wars to economy to weather to market crashes, to missing planes, all these things are governed by the puppet masters.
The irony was that the whole Illuminati, serious baddie ruling the world thing, in league with the devil, actually began with the Catholic Church. They really just went for it. They built up this whole myth about the Illuminati being in league with the devil, being, satanic, and gave them aims that they didn't have. Well, I mean, it was bad enough as far as the Catholic Church was concerned to, for them to have aims to overthrow the Catholic Church. But, they added to it and they gave it colour. And that is what started today's Illuminati myth. The Catholic Church started it.
Naturally enough, the history of the Illuminati is a little foggy when it comes to hard facts and solid research. Historically, the name refers to a secret society founded in 1776 by a law professor in Germany called Adam Weishaupt. According to his own writings, he set it up to oppose the church and state's power, influence and prejudice over public life. It was made up of academics, Renaissance thinkers and Freemasons. On the whole, it had a positive agenda, fighting for freedom and equality for all men and women. Quite radical in the 18th century. Today, the Illuminati is seen by many as a cabal of influential politicians, financiers and old European families who secretly control the world outside and above elected governments. According to rumours, they meet in secret to carry out their evil plans, which include creating financial crashes, price fixing, and starting wars and conflicts. They are said to be sworn enemies of the Church, and many are top-ranking Freemasons. In recent years, The main symbols of the Illuminati, the all-seeing eye and the pyramid, have been spotted in music videos, leading a whole new generation to believe that artists like Jay-Z, Beyoncé and Katy Perry are part of a conspiracy to brainwash the youth of today with an Illuminati agenda.
In a Rihanna video, there's secret subliminal messages about obey the Illuminati. And Katy Perry video, with ancient Egyptian stuff and little dogs and men turning into dogs and, and her strange teeth. This is, according to vast numbers of people, a fact that subliminal Illuminati messages, satanic messages, are leaching out from all of these sources, these crazy modern sources, and infecting our brains.
Are you telling me that Lady Gaga is not involved in some new world order?
No, she's involved in a new world order that consists of Lady Gaga.
What they stood for, shall we say, the relatively modern Illuminati, was to allow people to think freely. They wanted gender emancipation and education for women. They wanted to get away from the domination of the church. They wanted to get away from the domination of various political despots. And they stood, ideally, for freedom.
Over the years, there have been constant rumours and press reports and even books written about an unholy alliance between the Vatican, various secret societies and Masonic lodges. Now, very little of this has ever been conclusively proved, but it all came out into the light back in 1982 when a chap called Roberto Calvi, who was also known as God's banker, was found hanged under Blackfriars Bridge.
Author Robert Howells has spent years investigating the shadowy world of the Illuminati. He believes that it does still exist, but not as a central group, more a murky web of secret societies and Masonic lodges, many of whom do have high-level links to the Vatican, politics and banking.
Do the Illuminati exist today?
The ideals of them, certainly. This ideal of cultural revolution and cultural uprising has kind of stayed with us. And certainly people look back at the French Revolution as a marked moment where the populace could turn around and say, we're not happy with this government, we're getting rid of it. We're not happy with this oppression or this rule, and we can rise up against it. So as a symbol of that, they still exist.
One of the popular myths doing the rounds for the last decade or so is that a private foundation called the Bilderberg Group is really a front for the Illuminati.
Who exactly are the Bilderberg Group?
The Bilderbergs formed in the 1950s. They were to be a kind of joint group between Europe and America to exchange information. And they were made up of heads and states and senior members of the military and different areas of business and commerce. But over the years, because they meet in secret, they never publish the minutes of their meetings, and they contain such powerful people. Outsiders that look upon them as a potential kind of Illuminati operation, this kind of group of people that are perhaps trying to run the world or dictate how business is done.
For a long time, until about 15 or so years ago, it was even hard to find that the meetings happened at all. And of course, it's a conspiracy theorist's dream. What are all these rich and powerful people doing? What are they talking about? They would say they meet in private. The conspiracy theorists would say they meet in secret. And the things we don't really know what they talk about because they never publish anything. It is the conspiracy theorist's dream.
Those who are suspicious of them and who oppose them believe that they are conspirators and that what they really want to do, irrespective of what effect they're having on the bulk of humanity, is to run the show.
One has to consider the strong possibility that there are puppet masters above Obama, above Cameron, above Putin, who are organizing and influencing.
Since the French Revolution dissolved its monarchy, Paris has long been one of the centers for secret societies, Freemasonry, and the Illuminati. According to the rumors, core members of these groups possess written heretical material, perhaps alternative gospels and contemporary records from the 1st century that would challenge our accepted view of Christianity. Rob's research has revealed that one of the hotbeds of this heresy was at the Church of Saint-Sulpice, which is said to have housed a whole library of so-called heretical texts and books. It was founded by a Catholic priest, Jean-Jacques Ollier, in the 17th century, who was also a member of several influential secret societies.
So there's something we need to see over here. Ollier, on his deathbed, said that Christianity was based on a vast panoply of untruths.
Right.
He was the founder of this church in its modern form. It was him that rebuilt this church. And if we look at this painting, there is a hidden picture of Ollier in the painting. He's been included here.
So hang on, so this is the guy who built this church?
Yes.
And he said that Christianity was based on a lie?
Yes. Yes, and in this picture, he has his hand to his mouth, which is a Masonic symbol for trouble, for panic.
And what's he got in his other hand?
Under his arm, he has documents, he has scrolls and books. And I think that's the fact that this was hidden in one of the frescoes within the church, I think is important, because they're saying that secretly, these documents, that this is the kind of evidence, this is the heretical content that existed at the time in this church. And we find that later in history, when Canon Lilly was here in the 19th century and stated that he'd found proof that Jesus was alive in 45 AD, that he had survived the crucifixion.
Pretty powerful stuff.
For a church, it's incredible stuff. It would destroy the church if it was proven.
In fact, the Church and the Illuminati have been connected for centuries. It's been rumoured, but rarely ever proved, that there are leading members of secret societies at the very highest level in the Church. In fact, while we were near Notre Dame Cathedral, we saw a parade of a secret order moving through the streets. There were priests, a bishop, and dozens of non-clerical men wearing their ceremonial capes. But who were they? Most likely a Masonic or chivalric order connected to the Church of Notre Dame. But what struck me was just how much security this group had. The parade was surrounded by police and security guards with earpieces, walking alongside the caped gentlemen.
So you ask, who are these people? And it gets a little difficult to articulate. We have the Bilderberg Group, we have G8, we have these notions of who prints the money in the world. You look into that, you find it's privately held, and you wonder, who owns that? So these people, if they do exist, and all evidence sort of suggests that their existence is real, they've maintained their anonymity in the shadows now for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
According to Rob, you don't have to go far in Paris to see Illuminati and Masonic influence. In fact, one of the most iconic landmarks of the city, the Pyramid at the Louvre, is part of a much bigger structure, a recreation of an ancient Egyptian temple.
Now, this is one of the most iconic symbols of Egypt. Right. In the center of Paris, we have a pyramid that perfectly matches the angles of the Great Pyramid in Egypt.
Right, okay.
This was built as part of Francois Mitterrand's building project, where he placed Egyptian objects all across Paris. So we have this, we have obelisks, we have arches. The whole place is a paean to Egypt. We're in what is a recreation of the Temple of Luxor with a pyramid at the heart of it. The Temple of Luxor itself represents the Temple of Man in which God resides.
Yeah, that looks amazing. That's fantastic.
It is. It's a testament to the Freemasons rediscovering ancient Egypt as a perfect time, as a time when everything was built to perfection, to the ideals of a grand architect, to a god.
The pyramid was commissioned by a high-ranking Freemason, Francois Mitterrand, and it's claimed to have been constructed from 666 panes of glass, the symbolic number of Satan from the Book of Revelation, though the museum says the number is really 672. Interestingly, though, its sides were built to exactly match the same angles as the Great Pyramid at Giza. So, is Mitterrand's structure just an eye-catching folly, looking rather out of place in this 18th century stone courtyard? Or was it something more?
Mitterrand had some pretty esoteric ideas, right?
It was revealed after his death by his drivers and staff that he would actually go and visit that monument in the middle of the night just by himself, just kind of meditate and contemplate there. So he was kind of into some very, say from an Anglo-Saxon point of view, some very weird stuff. But he was also, he was very interested in things to do with the power of the land. He saw himself as somebody that had a kind of, in a way, divine right to rule France. He'd seen this from when he was a young man, that somehow he'd been chosen to be the ruler of France. It was his destiny.
So we've seen the pyramid in the Louvre, and we're now at the western end of the gardens of the Louvre, and this is the obelisk. This is an Egyptian obelisk dedicated to Ramses II.
So is it actually from Egypt? Well, I can see the hieroglyphs.
It was brought from the Temple of Luxor, and this completes the temple that they recreated using the Louvre. This is at the far end of it. It's at the gate that was the gate of Luxor in the same position. If we look at a map of the Louvre with the gardens, see the pyramid and the head of what would be classed the man in the form of a temple. So the pyramid was here, and if we come down through the gardens, we're now down here at the obelisk. And if we see an aerial photo of the Temple of Luxor, we can see the same layout.
Yeah, similar layout.
And at the same end, down there, that was where this obelisk came from.
So you believe that they were trying to match this to the way they've laid out Paris?
They've created an Egyptian temple in the middle of Paris.
So on one level, you see these famous landmarks that we all know and love, but you think there's something a lot more to it in the way they're laid out?
It is very much of the Masonic plan to reintroduce these older beliefs and these older mysteries into the modern day, and to use that kind of architecture, the great Egyptian architecture, and to recreate temples in the same way that they recreate Solomon's temple every time they build a lodge. So they build the Egyptian temples as well in a capital city, in the middle of a city.
If Rob's right, and the positioning of the Louvre pyramid and the obelisk was part of a secret Masonic plan to create a sacred space in the heart of Paris, then you get a sense of the power and influence that its creators must have had. And when you compare the layouts of the Temple of Luxor and the area around the Louvre, then you can see distinct similarities.
If you look at the plan of Paris and you look at the Temple of Luxor, you'll see that the Louvre structure and the gardens are laid out according to the Temple of Luxor. So in a way, the Freemasons have recreated Egypt, ancient Egypt, in Paris, in full view, allowing people to wander in and out looking at the Mona Lisa and sit in the gardens eating their lunch, not aware that they're sitting in the middle of an Egyptian temple.
a place of power, a place of great spiritual importance. And this has been created in the middle of Paris.
So, hang on, so you're telling me that there's some kind of magic portal in the centre of Paris?
I'm not saying I believe that. I'm saying that any esotericist, and I'm including Mitterrand, President Mitterrand in this, to them, alignments of buildings or natural features or patterns or symbols inscribed on walls, they're not just as we would see them. They're not just interesting. They actually mean something to them at a deeper level. They represent the direction of a magical energy flow. And I know that sounds a bit Harry Potter, but to them, it really is a kind of portal for energies from the gods, from spirits or whatever, to come in through a portal into our dimension and be used.
For what?
Well, whatever they want to use it for, presumably power. You know, that's what most people want to use energy for.
Unusually for a society created at the time Mozart was still alive, the Illuminati is big news today in youth culture and social media. The internet is in a tizzy over what some people see as its satanic messages and images being used by today's celebrities. So if you want to know who the real Illuminati are today, you don't need to break into the Vatican's secret archives, just pop into a cyber cafe.
Hi. How are you? Can I use one of these? Okay, lovely, thank you. What do people think the Illuminati are today?
Well, it's an astonishing phenomenon. It's worldwide. I was going to say mainly young people, but I don't know why I say that. I mean, it's just vast numbers of people on the planet today think the Illuminati exist behind the scenes, in league with the devil. I mean, absolutely not a turn of phrase. Absolutely, literally in league with the devil, possibly with devilish aliens. And they basically run the world. They're trying to establish some sinister new world order. And according to all the believers in this theory, because that's what it is, which they accept as total fact. I mean, to them, it's not a theory. According to them, these people are in governments, they're in the medical profession, they're in financial world. Some of us might agree with that to some extent, but they're there and they're real, and this is a real conspiracy based on a satanic pact, basically.
So the Illuminati is, according to this, an ancient and shadowy group of elites who control nearly every aspect of life on this planet, made up of the world's political and financial elite, and, it would seem, Jay-Z.
It's extraordinary how many people now believe it. I mean, it's all over the internet, but you kind of expect that to be. But just talking to people, people that aren't particularly interested in any of these subjects, or interested in politics, you know, some particularly young people, students we've talked to, absolutely accept the Illuminati as an established fact. Really just because everyone around them says the Illuminati exist. It's incredibly widespread, and considering the facts, the data, the historical data, it's surprising so many people believe what is effectively an urban myth.
Ah, this looks interesting. You too can join the Illuminati. Here we go. Just need my details. $2.99 a month.
The obsession with the Illuminati and their symbols has really gone off the scale in the last 10 years. Take, for example, this symbol that you see famous rock stars and politicians using, and it is peculiar, but you know, does it mean anything? Probably not. The other one is the all-seeing eye, which of course appears on the dollar bill, and it represents the all-seeing eye of the grand geometrician of the universe, according to Freemasonry. But now you see this in Lady Gaga videos and Jay-Z videos and Rihanna and all these celebrities now, they're all using the same sort of images. Fine, I mean, they are cool images, but the bloggers and the sort of, fringe press are looking at this and saying, ha, you are a member of the Illuminati, and you have been chosen to propagate these messages. But it's bollocks. I mean, it's just cool imagery they're using to sell music.
If I'm honest, the further I looked into the Illuminati, the less real it all felt. Yes, there was a small group of free-thinking liberals in Germany back in the 18th century, but as far as I can ascertain, that was where it ended. But since then, the myth of the Illuminati has been slowly and surely built up on the back of Freemasonry, secret societies, private foundations, and occultists to create this monster we see today.
When we look at the people's conceptions of what the Illuminati might be in today's world, people have almost certainly got the situation totally wrong. Almost any situation which can't be explained, almost any power base in the world, even now down to stars and superstars, are all thought by one person or another to be associated with this all-encompassing conspiracy to take over the world in usually a very negative sense. We particularly find it because people are so suspicious of bankers and industrialists. We don't trust politicians anymore. So all these people tend to get lumped together as if they're involved in some kind of very definite scheme to disenfranchise and disempower us.
Paris wasn't the only city to be influenced by secret societies and Freemasons. After the Great Fire of London destroyed much of the city in 1666, the great thinkers, writers, architects and alchemists of the day, like Sir Christopher Wren, seized the opportunity to rebuild London reflecting their esoteric agenda. Journalist David Hambling has spent years studying their influence on London, revealing a secret world of symbols, ancient geometry and the occult hidden in plain sight. One of these men was Nicholas Hawksmoor, who built a number of churches in London, including Christ Church in Spitalfields.
What's interesting about them was that they were all built along a particular pattern with separation and alignments, which linked them all together.
OK, so this is a map of the City of London?
So this is a map of the City of London area, and we are there at Christ Church, Spitalfields. And then you've got St Luke's, St George's, St John's.
Right, and that makes a sort of star...
Makes a sort of pentacle.
So are we suggesting that Hawksmoor deliberately built his churches to make a shape of a pentagram?
The pattern and the separation between them certainly makes it look as though he was trying to produce some kind of design, and the most obvious way to join them up is into a pentagram like that.
And what's the significance of the pentagram?
The pentagram is an ancient symbol of occult power, which was used to designate a ritual space inside which magic was performed.
And so what's he telling us then? Why this space? Do we know what was...
Basically, he's staking some kind of claim to the area within that space.
Which is, as we now know it...
The City of London.
The City of London. The Illuminati is often connected to a lot of conspiracy theories. What are the main ones?
I mean, they are at the centre of all the biggest conspiracy theories. Perhaps the most famous one is an American conspiracy theory called the New World Order, which is this idea that there is a group that's trying to abolish countries, and in particular, abolish American sovereignty and American rights. So they see things like the European Union, where you see the national boundaries being dissolved and things being run by a shadowy central organisation. For them, that's a sure sign that the Illuminati are behind it. And in their view, the Illuminati are attempting to take over the rest of the world as well.
They may not have taken over the world in the 17th century, but they did rebuild London, and their crowning achievement was undoubtedly St. Paul's Cathedral. According to Hambling, it was to be at the very centre of the sacred space they had created in the city, a New Jerusalem.
Now I recognise this place.
And it's a far cry from the austere, simple lines of Christchurch Spitalfields.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is very much the handiwork of Sir Christopher Wren. In fact, this is his greatest achievement, and possibly the greatest achievement of 17th century English architecture, St. Paul's Cathedral, heart of the New Jerusalem that the builders wanted to create after the Great Fire of London.
So this was absolutely central to the Illuminati's plans?
This was literally central to their plan of London.
What do we got here?
This is, and St. Paul's lies at the very heart
Oh, right, OK.
of the rebuilding plan.
So was this where we started, Christchurch Spitalfields?
So that's where we started.
Hawksmoor's
churches surround it, and right at the centre of it is St. Paul's, the beating heart of the new London. Yeah, the New Jerusalem is the shining city on a hill, the example to the world of a perfect, idealised city. And at the heart of that is a modern version of Solomon's Temple, which embodies all the wisdom in the universe, and that is St. Paul's Cathedral. That was the vision of Christopher Wren and the others who were trying to rebuild their New Jerusalem here. And this place also has a very interesting connection with Freemasonry, in that the first United Grand Lodge was actually formed right on that spot there, at the old Goose and Gridiron public house in 1717.
And that proximity to the Masons is significant?
It's very significant. In Masonic mythology, the very first Freemasons' lodge was set up in the porch of Solomon's Temple in Jerusalem, and the first United Grand Lodge ever, which was set up here in England, was set up just over there. So in the symbolic Temple of Solomon in London.
It has long been suggested that there is a very close connection between the Illuminati and Freemasonry. Now, I would tend to the view that both of them are visible tips. They're the surfaces of something much older and deeper. For want of a better term, I might use the name the Guardians, or the Guides, and that they go back millennia, not just a few centuries.
According to the conspiracy theorists, it's the Illuminati that are behind Freemasonry. Or according to some, it's Freemasons that are behind the Illuminati, but you can take your pick. That comes about because back with the original Illuminati, there was a connection, because the Illuminati worked by trying to infiltrate and take over Freemasonry. But that became kind of a gift to its opponents once the Illuminati had been broken up. Say, the Illuminati were within Freemasonry, therefore they were controlling Freemasonry. Wherever you see a Mason, you can now see the Illuminati.
There are some quite mad but very firmly held beliefs in, Freemasonry automatically being evil, and therefore it must be part of the Illuminati thing, and that they all are basically in it because of satanic naughtiness on a grand scale, and wishing to take over the world.
Adjacent to Christchurch in Spitalfields are the streets and alleys where the notorious Jack the Ripper terrorised London in the 19th century. Hambling believes that the Ripper murders were part of a wider Masonic conspiracy, which were part of a secret occult agenda. In essence, Jack the Ripper was part of the Illuminati.
One of the most famous and grisliest mysteries of Victorian London were the Jack the Ripper murders of 1888, when a number of prostitutes were killed and horribly mutilated all around this area. Jack the Ripper was never caught, and there are many theories about why he did what he did. But what wasn't fully appreciated until recently was there was very strong occult connection in the way the bodies were mutilated, the way they were laid out, and the pattern in which they were killed.
What do you mean the whereabouts of where the murders happened?
Well, if you plot their locations on a map, they form an exact parallelogram.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4.
Which are, yeah, those are the 4 who were found outside. There was the 5th victim who was found inside under different circumstances, but with those 4, there appears to have been a ritual connection.
So if you were to superimpose that onto a map,
you would get that.
Oh, right, okay, so we are here. So why was he choosing these locations? Why are these significant?
Again, it's to mark out a sacred space on the ground for what could loosely be described as a black magic ritual, so that he could gain power.
So we think that... Are we suggesting then that Jack the Ripper was a member of the Illuminati?
He certainly had an understanding of the kind of principles that the Illuminati were working with. If he was a member of them, I would say he was probably a rogue member who was just out for himself.
Given all this information, do we know who he might have been?
There's a very strong suspicion that he was a man called Robert Donston Stevenson, who was a student of the occult and a journalist who wrote a number of articles about the black magic connections of the Jack the Ripper killings. He was arrested 3 times for the murders, but the police never proved anything and he was released. But he remains one of the strong suspects.
One of the theories which is associated with the horror of the Jack the Ripper killings is that the lacerations were meant to conform to a certain geometric pattern, that it wasn't simply the old Masonic vengeance for oathbreakers, which it was, but that at the same time there was a geometrical aspect of the mutilations that he carried out. And that has a very sinister depth to it. Just exactly who was the Ripper and why did he use those peculiar configurations on his victims?
When you're presented with the hard evidence of the Illuminati's influence on London, it's a compelling case. But has there really been a coordinated effort from one group to run our lives, our politics, our economies, even build our cities from the shadows? Or are some people just trying too hard to connect all the dots and construct a powerful mythology?
Well, the longer I've lived, the more I've looked into society and why things apparently happen in very unexpected ways sometimes, my life experience suggests that there are influences other than the simple cause and effect that we're aware of. But that is more of a gut feeling. I can't say, oh yes, I'm sure they exist because of A, B, C, and D. I've got no proof that they are a dangerous secret society. But when I look at all the things that happen, both politically and economically and internationally, then I can't help wondering why those things happen. But it's only a question mark. It's not a certainty in their existence.
My neighbour, for example, totally believes, as a fact, that the Illuminati secretly run the world and are trying desperately to establish a new world order, in which they are succeeding bit by bit. And this terrifies her. Or she gets together with all her friends, and even their religious advisors are pushing this idea that the Illuminati are in charge.
So for some people, it's a very real and a very tangible threat.
It's very real, it's very tangible, and the fact that most people don't acknowledge it, most people walking in the street, the man in the street, don't acknowledge it, just shows, how they're sleepwalking around. not acknowledging this terrible threat that is hanging over us all.
You know, what's interesting, these societies today, like these Neo-Templar and, of course, Freemasonry, what do they have in common? They're private and secretive, and that allows them to have some fun and pay homage to ancient tradition, but they're harmless. But because they're secretive, they get thrown into this bucket of being evil and part of the Illuminati, and they're really not. They're really harmless.
I think what we might have here is actually the reverse of what many people think, in so much as the Illuminati is seen as almost like a nefarious, dark, manipulating group who are trying to bring about their own world agenda. What if they're the opposite? What if they are a group that are actually trying to uphold ancient traditions, ancient symbolic ideas that were pre-church, pre the religions of the book? And what if they are trying to actually make us aware that some of these ideas, the measure, for instance, sacred geometry, are actually where we find God, where the real spiritual elements of life can be found.
If we look back to the original conception of the Illuminati, when it first bore that name, its whole idea was to literally build a better world, not just for the influential people, but for ordinary people. In my conception, and through a host of different books, it seems to me that something like the original Illuminati does indeed still exist, but it's much more subterranean than most people would think these days. And it's very similar in its intentions and objectives to what it was back in 1776. It seeks to make the world a better place, but we have to remember that the people involved in it are extremely patient. In a world where everything seems to happen in 2 minutes, the Illuminati, if that's what you still want to call them, are generational and multi-generational. They take the time, but they are, slowly but surely, making the world a better place.
So are they real? Well, after everything I've learned, it's hard to dismiss them as a wild conspiracy theory. I certainly think there's evidence to claim that there have been groups of influential men throughout the last 200 years or so who've sought to influence events and change the course of history from the shadows. And are they still doing it? Well, you tell me. I'll see you next time.